Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. I always love starting the podcast by saying thank you. I was guided to start this podcast, and really my intention is to guide people on their spiritual journey and to simplify spirituality. And I feel so very blessed with the journey. I feel so blessed with the messages I get on a weekly basis, the people it reaches. So thank you. My name is Nimesh Radia. I'm the host of this podcast. I am a spiritual coach, mentor, and a Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, as well as a podcast host and a podcast creator. I love what I get to do. I get to guide people to truly shine their light, to release their programming, and to be their authentic selves. I also get the opportunity to interview and to have a conversation with some amazing guests. And today I'm excited to be joined by Justin Breen. I've only known Justin for a couple of weeks, but he's already had a massive impact on me. So Justin, thank you for being here. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Grateful to be here. Thank you means acknowledging the other person's humanity. So thank you for having me. I lead a pretty simple life, connecting visionaries to serve humanity. So that's basically all I ever think about, feel, is just connecting visionaries to help the world. And it's a lot of fun doing that.
Wow. It's interesting, the importance of making connections. A lot of people talk about we are souls having a human experience. The individual experience is important, but it really does feel like whatever we're creating right now, it has to be a co-creation. And it's important that the connections we make and the community we have around ourselves, it doesn't mean we're not on our individual journey, but it does mean the community we have around us is important.
Yeah.
So thank you for everything you do. I mean, you've already connected me to some amazing souls, and thank you for doing that. So whatever you're doing, it feels very important.
Thank you. It is.
And I'm curious, what kind of got you to that point where you felt it was important that your role of connecting visionaries? What led you to that piece?
Well, I can answer that in many ways, but I think the best way to answer that is from our relationship and our interactions, doing an Akashic reading of, my past lives and this current one, and then future, bending time. I mean, and in this lifetime, I've always been like this. I mean, my earliest childhood memories are, reading and being very curious about people, and then trying to connect them and interview them. And even though I'm talking in this interview, 90% of my interactions are actually listening to others and then connecting them to others just from hearing and feeling what they're saying. So from a strategic landing the plane perspective, I'm 47 years old. Since high school, I have been a journalist, whether that's in TV or newspapers or online companies or magazines or even radio. And then for the last 7 years, have been an entrepreneur. Through two companies, have been connecting visionaries. One is a global PR firm that's really not a PR firm. It's just a connectivity platform for opportunities like this. And then the second company is a global mastermind only for visionaries, which you'll be speaking at in a couple days. And it's just a room full of people like us on a global level. And they're very hard to find at first, but once you find the true visionaries, then they just kind of multiply, which is really interesting.
I love it, and it just feels like a really critical function, especially bear in mind whatever the planet's going through, right? We can feel the massive change, and we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Akashic reading. Thank you for allowing me to open your records, connecting with your guides. That was a blessed experience. So thank you.
Welcome.
And as far as the current energy, right? We were talking about this too, and it does feel like there's a massive shift happening. I talk about this on the podcast quite often. There's a massive shift happening. We're all kind of being pushed to do our healing, to shine our light. But it also feels like, we're kind of entering into the age of the feminine. And, we all have masculine and feminine energy in us. But if you look at the last few centuries, it all has been about the masculine, right? It's all been about a lot of power struggles, a lot of wars, a lot of, all the rest of it.
Yep.
But it feels like we're moving into an age of the divine feminine where our gifts are being activated. The spiritual side is being more and more activated.
Yep.
But the masculine side is almost going through some sort of identity crisis because we've been in the masculine age for so long, and it's just now as we're shifting. And when I talk about masculine and feminine, I'm not talking about male and female, because we both, all of us have the masculine and feminine energy in us, right? So even if you're in your female, you're masculine, you could still be struggling. So I really feel, and we were talking about this, I really feel like the masculine is struggling, and it's also it's almost leading to an identity crisis in a lot of people. And I've only read part of your new book that's coming out, but it feels like that's a big part of the book in terms of the masculine. So I'd love for you to talk more about that. What do you feel is happening energetically right now? And kind of, you can talk a bit more about your book and kind of what the overall message of the book is.
Sure. I'm happy. Thank you for asking that and the detailed background. So I guess just to land the plane, talk is really meaningless to me without action and results. Like it's just meaningless to me. And then most people, which is fine, I guess, but they talk about something, but they don't actually do it, which I don't understand personally, but a lot of the world is like that. So the book you're referencing, Epic Journey, which was just a pure manifestation, full credit to higher power. And I guess technically I wrote it, but I don't really take any of the credit for it. And then very grateful, Dr. Deepak Chopra has agreed to do an introduction for it. There are many other announcements I can't share publicly yet, but it's going to be it's a very big deal. And it's a great responsibility to be able to write something like this. It's a gift, so I'm very grateful to have that gift. And basically everything I've learned in 47 years being here, and then through past generations and learning from other great visionaries, I've put that into the book. And one of those learnings, to answer your question, I think answers your question, is about divine masculine and feminine. And I referenced in one of the chapters a book called Why Leaders Fight, which chronicled all world leaders from 1875 to 2004. And during that time, again, 1875 to 2004, there were 87 wars that took place, 87 wars. And only one was started by a woman, only one. So one out of 80.
Oh, wow.
1 out of 80. I was surprised it was one. I thought it'd be 0. But so one. And conversations, my sons are, our sons are 11 and 10. They're both boys. And we have conversations consistently about how essentially the male ego is the major problem in our society, and then how partnerships within my life and companies, there has to be at least one actual woman involved in that partnership, or someone with more feminine energy, because it balances out the male ego. So that's a couple things, and then again, talk is meaningless to me without action. So I invest well over $100K US a year to be in if you want to call them masterminds or whatever type of group. So 100K a year, it's no small investment, but it's a good investment. And then was just tired of being in rooms with 80-90% men, where it's primarily driven by ego or scaling companies or revenue or not thinking past your own lifetime. So tired of doing it, so you start something. And so I started, and take no credit for its growth, but I did start it, a global mastermind where it's connecting visionaries to serve humanity, and our membership's about 40% women from all over the globe. And then my wife, who's a pediatrician, she's essentially phased out of pediatrics to run the company. And her number one strength finder, Gallup Clifton Strength Finder, is harmony. So she brings a lot of harmony to the room, and so do all of our female members. They bring a lot of great balance, for sure.
I love that. And I really believe everything is a co-creation, right? And
yeah,
I love the fact that everything you talk about isn't yours. I agree. I mean, a lot of whatever I say, wherever it comes from, it's not mine. It's coming from, I channel universal truth from somewhere, and
100%.
I don't claim ownership of any of it, right?
No.
I'm here to serve, and I'm going to serve in whatever way I'm meant to. So I'm curious. So you talked about taking action. So if we have any of our listeners that are kind of struggling, maybe on the masculine, but just generally struggling overall, any actions you'd recommend for people to do if they're kind of in that sort of crisis?
So I appreciate that question. I appreciate that. For the audience to understand, so literally all I do all day is talk to the world's top visionaries, and then connect them to people like that, or people like that, or people who want to be like that and will never make an excuse, like ever. So me personally, it's really hard for me to understand anyone who makes an excuse, because a great visionary, whether they're a billionaire or not, they will not make an excuse. That's what separates visionaries from everyone else. They don't make excuses. They just don't. And from a family perspective, my litmus test is, well, my mom as well, but my father was 61 when I was born, 61, and he was a World War II hero, shot down multiple times in combat, many times without a parachute, and he would just get back into a plane. And he kept a diary of his fighting experiences in World War II. Toward the end of it, what was called the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest. Very deadly battle. For those who have seen the Brad Pitt movie Fury, it was similar to that in terms of just horrific violence. And I mean, it's good timing, and I don't believe in randomness, but yesterday I grabbed the diary again. I just felt like reading it because there's always new lessons. And actually posted that entry today. And it talked about how few of his company, I think there were 3 members of his original company left at the time he had written that, and it was 5 days. It was November 28th, 1944, so 5 days after American Thanksgiving. And then he was keeping track of, there were 3 other companies that they had united with, and there were 4 and 5 original men left in those companies. So I say that because it's the same thing as like visionary, the truly highest level visionary level. It's very rare. Most people can't do it. They can't, because they make excuses. And then a true visionary they wouldn't. They just would find a way around that. The question you asked, they would find a way around that.
It is interesting. I mean, I feel all visionaries have kind of been through some kind of intense journey, right? And
yes, the most intense.
And that's the thing. So I feel like a lot of visionaries, and if somebody's listening here and they are struggling, you've also got to remember that sometimes what you've been through is going to be not what defines you, but it's going to be your.
But then so thank you for saying that. There are so again, all I do is talk to visionaries or people that will do whatever it takes. And then my heart and brain just like they simplify it into a pattern. So blah 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 simplify pattern. Blah 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 simplify into pattern.
I love it.
So okay. And then there are only four things. There are only four things that separate visionaries from non-visionaries. Only four. There are only four that I've seen. And all I do is talk to visionaries. So the four things: 1, bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy; 2, depression; 3, highest level of anxiety you can imagine; 4, trauma as a child or young adult. So non-visionaries, those are excuses. Visionary, figure it out. And then since COVID, I can recall talking to 7 or 8 people that are less than 3 of those 4 things. Less than 3 of the 4. Almost everyone I talk to is 3s, and most of the folks now are 4 of those things. All 4. I'm 3 of the 4. 3 of them.
Nice. And again,
Nice.
I guess if you're listening, if that's something you resonate with,
Yes.
Know that your things you're going through are part of your journey, and there's so many people I see just keep going. Right, there's so much healing that's happened this year.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because the visionary you's been activated, right? So
it was always there, unconsciously. And it's a great point that you just made. I found that the trauma or the challenges or things like that, actually, it brings it out into the conscious. You see what you're really made of. And it's okay that most people, in fact, almost no one's a visionary. I would venture to say maybe 1 out of 1,000 people. It's probably less than that, but we'll say 1 out of 1,000. So that's 8 million out of 8 billion. It's very rare, but the 8 million out of 8 billion are the ones that create everything that help everyone else. So if I can connect the 1 out of 1,000 to the other 1 out of 1,000, I can help the 999 out of 1,000. That's the way I look at it.
Beautiful. I'd love to hear more about, because it feels like you're more spiritually connected than, maybe
100%.
Yeah, so I'm curious about your spiritual journey and the connections that you feel around you.
Yes.
And the guidance you have around you. How would you describe it?
Well, it's a tremendous question and very good discernment by you. High level observation. And I mean, there's multiple answers to that, but what I will say is being a journalist for 20 years and just literally being paid to listen to people and feel, most of the people I talk to were going through some type of trauma, and I was always gravitated toward people who had experienced pain and turned that into power, or making money, or running a company, or coaching an NBA team or a Premier League team, or what, bring it back to Britain. But I was always fascinated by what made them tick. And I don't know why this is, other than maybe because my parents and their ancestors were like this as well. But for people who make no excuses, will do whatever it takes, I feel their pain so strongly. And they can feel me feeling their pain. And then when someone, and there's no right or wrong answer, but when, to me, someone is pretending to be a visionary, but they're really, I guess, what would you call it, a narcissist, just caring about their own lifetime or their own bottom line, or they're trying to make money or take advantage of a true visionary, I can just feel it. And then it affects me in a different way, because I feel like the mask that they're wearing. I can feel it. And with them, they can feel me feeling it, and then they just disappear. They actually will hang up on the call, or, oh, I can't talk to you ever again. I see it happening in real time. I can see it in real time. And I think why visionaries bond so well is because I haven't met one, actually. Definitely haven't met one since COVID. They're not necessarily religious. The word religion means binding, to bind, and service means slavery. So religious service is binding slavery. That's what the words mean. I think that's pretty good awareness for people to know. But all of these folks, I have not met the exception yet. They have a high degree of faith and spiritual, a big amount of spiritual faith. And one of the chapters that addresses that specific aspect in the Epic Journey book is Fog, Fog, which I consider to be F is faith, O is obligation, and G is glitch, a glitch. And so visionaries create glitches in society that cause a lot of chaos or disruption, but eventually society catches up and there's like a rebirth. So, but that all starts with faith, and you have an obligation to follow that faith to create a glitch. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. And it's interesting in terms of, your gift of connecting to people's energies and vibrations very quickly without
your gift too.
And thank you for that. But it's like we'd probably said 3 words together before you kind of, we talked about my energy. So
I could feel it. And me, I'm like, and when someone's at your level of energy, I was just like, oh. I had the same reaction. Ian Lopatin, he founded a company called Spiritual Gangster, which I guess technically is like a yoga company, but it's like a clothing line or something. It's a very, very well-to-do company, but he's traveled the world learning from yogis and healers. And then he spoke to our group at an in-person event in Arizona recently. And he said, you're either suffering or in enlightenment. That's what he had learned from, decades of traveling the world looking for suffering or enlightenment. And then I found that visionaries, because again, all I do is talk to visionaries. Okay, so every answer I have is going to be talking about what visionaries think. But they'll go through endless suffering to find enlightenment. They'll just continue to suffer because they know at the end there's enlightenment, or they'll keep going no matter what.
Yeah. And it's, I feel like a lot of visionaries kind of here to break the mold, right?
All of them
not
are.
lead a,
All of them.
not lead a, well, I meant all of them, right? But
all of them.
not lead a program life. And it's like,
no
when
rule.
you go, when you're going against the programming that's been around there for centuries,
Yes,
that's where your intense trauma or whatever that comes from, because you're not here, you don't feel like you belong, you're not meant to belong.
You don't belong.
And that's the point. You don't. So,
Yeah.
and it's just, but I mean, I do want to recognize the gift that you have, because that is a spiritual gift, right? The ability to connect to people's vibrations.
Thank you.
Without even listening to them and just feeling their energy and their intention.
Yes.
That is a gift. That is a gift. And,
not mine. I mean, it is, but it's from a higher power. I mean, but yes, and then thank you for saying that. Like, I do believe and feel that everyone is born with a gift. And then most people, to me, it's very sad. They don't find out what it is, and then many times they don't do it. They don't do anything about it. That is really hard for me to understand, almost impossible. It's really, because it's like you're denying yourself. It's weird to me.
I kind of feel like the energy that we're shifting into, I can talk about moving into the feminine, we are being pushed to activate our gifts much more than we ever have been before. I feel like
good point.
There's a shift in Mother Earth and whatever Source God, Mother Earth are doing. I feel like we are being pushed to activate our gifts. I feel like there's a lot of souls that chose to be here because of the shift that's happening. I feel like we're all going to have a choice whether we want to expand, activate our gifts, move to the fifth time, whatever you want to call it. But it's free will, right? It's free will. And some of us will choose to activate and some of us won't. And you know what? There's no right or wrong, right? Everybody's on their own unique individual journey. But I do feel like there is a need for people like us to share that truth, to inspire people, to let people know there is a choice.
No, there's no choice. To me, there's no choice for people like us to share our gifts. I guess to bring awareness for others. But no, and I've really thought about this and felt about this quite a bit. I think for a visionary, there actually is no choice. It's a commandment. You would die, you would literally die, and die inside if you didn't share it. You're just compelled it's just a different type of feeling. And then most people just don't understand that. And then to simplify that, visionaries, not always, but usually aliens within their own family, community, and verticals.
Yeah.
Only people that understand visionaries are other visionaries. So it's a very lonely world. Very lonely world. It can be, for sure.
And that is also, it's like it's also your spiritual awakening, right? When you're
100%.
you know, maybe you're leading a program life, and all of a sudden the universe has a way of shaking your world,
Yes.
and you know you go through that
Yes.
awakening, and all of a
Yes.
sudden you can't. I mean, I was in the corporate world, and I couldn't just stay.
Oh,
I
me
couldn't.
too.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Oh
do
my
it
God.
anymore.
That would be, how long were you? 20 years plus?
I was in the corporate world for 30 years.
Oh my God. Oh.
I mean,
Oh.
last few years, I'm definitely activating the spirit. But yeah, it was
Oh.
hard. It was hard. Yeah, I feel that pain. I feel that pain. I feel that pain. So
30 years. I mean, so 30 years, that wasn't even an average lifetime, even like 200 years ago. People didn't live 30
yeah,
years. They didn't. So, like, and then you think, you're a child until you're like 11 or 12. So, really you have like 18 years, I don't know, 17 years as an adult. So you almost doubled that. To me, that's
yeah.
torture. Um,
Yeah, and also bear in mind my spiritual awakening happened during that time. So I was going through my spiritual awakening while in the corporate world, and I believe
what
I
was
was
your
there for.
actual job?
I was in senior director of sales operations, and then I moved into sales
Okay.
in a software company. And to be fair, I worked for a company called Red Hat. They're open source, so culturally they had a different
Mm-hmm.
culture to most companies.
Yeah.
We were then taken over by IBM. Maybe the vibration changed a little bit, but you know, I'm grateful for my experience
Of
in life
course.
and it's led me to the healer I am today. And you know, I know, like I know, I have a gift, and I know it's not mine. I know I'm meant to be of service, and I'm just going to show up wherever the universe needs me to, and yeah, speak whatever universal truth comes through, share whatever knowledge I have, because it's not mine, right?
Right.
So I'd love. I mean, you talked about your book. And again, you talked about it not being yours and you channeled it. I'd love for you to kind of share more about the process, what you went through with the book.
Okay. Still going through it.
Sure.
It's going through, and we'll never stop. Like, it'll in a good way. It'll always be painful, even looking at it. I There's technically 32 chapters, and every single time I reread or edit the first chapter, I start crying 100% of the time, because I remember. I mean, it was I started it April 12th, 2024, so 2 days after my birthday, turning 47, and then finished it around May 25th. On pure faith manifestation, just pure following faith, higher power. And to simplify all that, the book is how I healed my heart to hopefully show people how to do that. And then the world, to me, is an overwhelming majority of people have a broken heart, and they're trying to fix other things, but they haven't fixed themselves. And to me, you can't really fix anything unless you fix yourself first, your heart specifically. And so that's what the book is about, as simple as that sounds. But the pain and all the things that were surrounding me during this, it was very painful. But also, one of the most powerful things ever. And that led to what it is and what it will be. And so, to have Dr. Deepak Chopra doing an introduction for it, I mean, that doesn't just happen. So, but it takes something like this for something like that to happen. So it was worth it, because I I know when this book comes out, it will. One, I know it will change the world. It's that powerful. And then two, more importantly, it will help endless amounts of people for well past my own lifetime. It's that powerful, and I don't say things like that lightly. I don't, but it just will. It just will.
Wow. I love that. I love that. So much power in kind of sharing that journey, and
Yeah,
kind of what you shared in terms of everybody does have a broken heart, and it's our programming leads us to say, let's put everyone else first and don't put ourselves first. And we do that as a defense mechanism, right? Because
100%.
we don't want to face the pain that we're feeling inside. And
It's a
that's,
mask. You're just building.
yeah,
So like most of it's fine. What you said is 100% accurate. And then you can see it or feel it. Most of the world is just a giant mask of protection and defense mechanism. That's literally. And then mask comes from a word masque, which means fool. It means a fool. So that's what it means.
yeah. And for me, that's kind of what I do, right? I guide people to really release their programming to heal their heart, to truly become their authentic selves. And it's so beautiful just seeing people healing themselves and focusing on themselves, because it's alien for people to put themselves first. It's just like,
especially
and when people,
visionaries, by the way, it's really
yeah,
hard because they just want to help everyone else. Um, yeah,
but it's a form of escapism, right?
100%. It's an addiction. So the four things: the bankruptcy, potential bankruptcy, depression, anxiety, and trauma as a child. Gino Wickman, he founded EOS, Entrepreneur Operational System. I think that's what EOS is, and he's become a really good friend. But he and his co-author Rob Dubay, they talked about those four things in their new book Shine, and then he gave a nice speech about those four things at the EOS main conference. So there are a lot of visionaries at that. And then he put it in the book, but he added a fifth to those four things, which is addiction. So, uh, addiction to money or cars or houses or employee count or some ridiculous list or whatever, vanity. And then I'm addicted to my purpose, connecting visionaries to serve humanity and honoring a higher power through that. Because without that, there's no way. I don't like all the things I've been through in life. Like someone, many people are protecting me because my wife and I were just on Necker Island. That's where Sir Richard Branson lives. So we spent 5 days with him, and it was a really great experience because uh, I'm like, how are you not dead? Like like, how are you not dead? I just asked him that, and he goes, he's always had a North Star protecting him. So that that part's in the book because like I like to learn from people like that because they've had the most. They've of those four things they've had the most,
Yeah.
they have the highest IQ and EQ and no excuses. But yeah, but that was the first thing he said. He's had a North Star protecting him because otherwise
Isn't
he'd
that
be
interesting?
dead.
Isn't that?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. So like, that's why I like to, you know, collaborate with people like Dr. Deepak Chopra and things like that because that's where you really learn. You learn from the highest level, and then you can take those lessons and help other people with that, whether or not they want to be someone like that or not. You can still
Yeah.
help them.
And it's interesting. Back in the day, a lot of the visionaries maybe wouldn't talk about the spiritual side,
Correct.
but it does seem to be much more talked about now because
That's the
it is
shift.
important.
That's the shift that's coming. I
Yeah.
really think that, and I think to what you're saying, that's also more of the feminine aspect of it. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So the feminine actually correlates more with the spiritual. That's what I
Yeah.
took from that,
It does, and
which would
that's
make
why
sense.
at the age that we're moving into is all about the heart. It's all about the spiritual awakening, and
Yeah,
you know, there's so much political stuff happening in the world, and you could focus on that for sure.
I
But
ignore
for
politics
me,
completely. I
yeah,
completely ignore.
but for me, that's what I mean about the masculine struggling. Is that's what. But if you choose to awaken on the spiritual side, it does. There is a change. You can feel the shift, and it is more about the feminine. And it's not about male or female. It's about us awakening, connecting with our gifts. So I'm curious for you in terms of,
Hmm.
your soul is clearly picked a unique experience. So I wonder when we talk about that, I know we've talked about it a little bit,
Yeah.
your soul's decision to kind of incarnate in this lifetime and then the mission. How do you feel about that whole kind of connecting with your soul and understanding you at a deeper level?
No choice but to do it and keep doing it. And then I'm 47, and the main two things now are, one, raising level of consciousness to the highest point possible in this lifetime, because that can help the most people. And whether it's the same thing or a byproduct of that, it's eliminating, not fully eliminating ego, but eliminating the part of the ego in my life currently and then in past lives that has been not positive, but a detriment. And that's a even though I don't really live in days or weeks or years, that's a
Mm.
constant that's a constant practice. And then just to land the plane, the first thing I do every day, very first thing when I wake up, it's called the Prayer of Jabez, Jabez. It's a really good book, Prayer of Jabez. And then the prayer is, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil." So I've read that every day for, boy, I would say at least a year.
Nice.
And that's a really good way to, one, to start the day. Two, it's a good way to stay focused. And three, to really make yourself aware, to feel the true good visionaries and then the ones who are wearing a mask, whether it's an evil mask or just a mask of non-awareness. There's differences in those masks for sure.
And on the spiritual track, how guided do you feel? How much energy do you feel around you?
Well, I'd rather. I'll answer that. I was talking to a great visionary in Canada. We're in Chicago area, so I talked to a lot of people in Canada, Western Canada, and she said she could feel my pain and power through the Zoom call or the whatever, the computer screen. The pain and power, and from a personal standpoint, I feel it very strongly. Um, Very, very strongly. And um, every day, or however you want to look at it, every meeting or every even minute, really, I feel like I'm evolving um, to a point where I feel like I haven't even been born yet, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Like I feel like all of this is like still being in the womb. Maybe the actual book coming out, maybe that'll be like my actual birth, but I don't even think that's necessarily true. I think when I turn 50, which is 2.5 years, a little more than that, I think that's when I'll. So it knowing this pain and power or the gift or whatever that is, um, it's all good because it'll help when I'm actually born, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It may not make a sense to everybody, but I totally feel that.
Okay, good, right?
Yeah, we are going through a rebirth, and
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
time for me is a human concept. So I don't believe our
100%.
spiritual journey, our guides
Right.
really go to. Is it just because it's 50? It's just like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Right.
so I'm curious about your book. When is it? What's the do you have a release date? When can we expect it?
What can I announce? I can announce that it likely will be in 2024, but I don't have
Okay.
an exact date, and there are other things contractually I cannot announce yet, but I will do that
Okay.
as soon as I can. But I will say the things that I will be announcing are, I mean, again, like I'm very grateful for all this. Like it was worth it to go through all this and continue to do it because I know it will help people. And I don't want to make it sound like a sacrifice, but that's kind of what it. I mean,
Sure.
and even just to relate it to you, like doing an Akashic reading, which was wonderful. I wouldn't bring something like that or anything like that to our group or the community I helped start without doing it myself first. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't do that.
And
So
that's fair.
yeah, and then it's the same thing with the book. Like how are you supposed to help people go through their journeys if you haven't gone through yours or experienced something like that? So I went all in, risked everything to do it. Would have disappeared from society completely. Um, um, and it was worth it to go to that length to do it. It was worth it.
How and coming to the end, but how do you feel about shifting in the book coming out, and part of that was going to mean that you're seen? How does that make you feel?
Well, from a personal standpoint, I know my intentions are pure, and I know the people, whether it's one person or the people that I really care about, I know it's to help them, and help me, but to really help them.
Hmm.
And then two, I mean, you've started reading it. Thank you. There's not a. The only books that are really like this are like The Little Prince and The Alchemist, but those
Yeah.
are nonfiction, but fiction. This is non. This is what actually happened. So, and then I know collaboration with Dr. Chopra and the Chopra Foundation and all those things. I mean, it's inevitable the impact this will have, but that's because one, it came from a higher power, and two, I never made an excuse. I just did I just did it. And that to me is the only way. It's the only there are no other options. It's the only way. And then most people, to your other point, they'll never understand that. They just won't, which is okay. But the
Which
true
is fine.
visionary
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. And it's just for you. Look, this is a part of your healing process, right? As you,
100%. That's yes.
I can, I mean, I can feel the energy, and it's like
But
I've
that's
experienced,
my point. You have to heal
Yeah.
yourself first. That's what. How can you heal? So okay. So you're a healer or whatever. You know the term. So how can a healer heal anyone if they haven't healed themselves? I
100%.
mean, it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. So it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I feel like healing's a lifetime experience anyway. But
Well,
yes,
correct.
if you haven't done the work, then
It's,
then
yeah.
how are you going to attract other people, right? I
I
mean,
don't
how can you
know.
do
I
it?
honestly don't know. But that does happen. Most people can't see through it, but that's what I mean. Like I can feel when someone is like that, and it's so painful for me. And it's painful for them too. It's like a mirror into their own soul, and they can't handle it,
Yeah.
and they just build a
I mean,
mask.
yeah. I mean, I love coincidence. I mean, like me and you connecting and how that will happen was
I mean,
just, yeah. I mean, that's just,
so that
it was
happens.
just,
That happens 5+
yeah.
times a day for or whatever time frame you want.
And yeah. I mean, I love how the universe works and the synchronicities of it. And
Yes,
so,
because you're in
but
flow, and you went through the pain of corporate, even though it was a decent company, but you went through the 30 years. I mean, that's a
yeah.
long time. And but it was necessary. And then if it's helpful, like people ask me all the time, they're like, well, what would you have changed in your life? I go, nothing. What do you do? Why?
I don't, yeah.
One, I can't do anything about that. Two, why would I? I mean, it's all meant to happen just like that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. There's no regrets.
No.
Yeah.
No.
There's learnings.
A lot of
Sure, there's
learning.
the
A lot of
learnings.
learning.
And sometimes I feel like, I know that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, Could the suffering be less? Maybe. But you know what? I'm not going to change
No,
anything. So,
suffering cannot. No, the suffering is essential.
so
So one of the chapters is strategic patience. Strategic patience. So strategic comes from a word that means the highest form of leadership, like general leadership, like a general in the army. And then patience is from a Latin word that means suffering. So patience literally means suffering. And that's the key, is being patient, to suffer. To just
yeah,
suffer through it.
and I know one of my lessons in this lifetime is patience. Not the most patient person, but it's a work in progress.
That's a
Let's just say it's a work in
constant.
progress.
And to be fair, I think that's a lesson for anyone, whether you're a visionary or not. And that's something I struggle with personally. That's probably my biggest struggle, is being patient. But, and again, talking with you recently multiple times, that's helped me learn about that even more, which has really helped me be more patient, which is suffering, which is good, because that leads to enlightenment. So I was trying to tie everything together there, if that was helpful.
That was really cool. Thank you. So listen, as we're closing out this episode, is there any final bits of advice you have for the listener on their journey?
I don't like being an advice person. Okay.
Any insight? Any
Yeah,
insight?
insight. Yeah, knowledge was the I don't like using the word should. Like, I hate. That's just not. It's not my role. People can do whatever they want. What I will say is, at the highest level, there are no secrets. Like, people ask, like, "Oh, what's the biggest secret?" I go, "The biggest secret is that there are no secrets at the highest level." So you have people trying to compete or protect themselves or their IP or whatever that is. It's not acknowledging the higher power, that where the gift came from originally, to go back to your faith spiritual question. So, like, I don't care about this, what this book sells. The word sale, by the way, means dull and dirty. That's literally it's what it means.
Love
That's what it, I mean, business means anxiety, but, so, like, that's the secret of this, that at the highest level, there are no secrets. Like, why would you want to keep something a secret that came from a higher power? I just don't understand that.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
I love it. There are no secrets.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I believe all the information we need is available to us if we're open to it.
It is.
And but I wouldn't Google it. I would just trust in your own instinct, trust in your connection to source.
100%.
And you have access to more information there. So I always tell people everything you need is inside you.
Yes.
And it's like when you go looking outside for the secret, it means that you're trying to fix yourself. And what if there's nothing to be fixed? You got to just truly focus on what's inside you and allow that to take you on a journey. So
yes,
I've loved our conversation.
Me too.
I know we've had a few over the last few days.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so open. Thank you for agreeing to come and share your wisdom. I'm excited for your book to come out.
Thank you.
Thank you for sending me a copy. Sending you so much love and light. And I'm grateful to have met you, and thank you for being on this podcast.
You're welcome.